we will ask if Treasurer Read is ready to give us 7 minutes or so. Hi, good to see you.
Madam Chair, nice to see you too. I'm not ready to give you 7 minutes.
Okay.
I'm ready for about 2 minutes because I'm a lot more interested in hearing what you all want to talk about. I have, I've gotten used to being in my basement here. It's not as good as being in person with all of you. So I know what I'm going to say. I want to hear what's on your mind and what feedback and questions you might have for me. I'm kind of amazed that we've only got 3 weeks left in this primary election, and I am continuing to run for governor because I'm frustrated with where we are in Oregon. And I think we have a big choice in front of us, whether we want to have more of the same, the status quo essentially, or a change in direction. And for me, the evidence of the need for a new direction is all around us. I know that the homeless issue is not limited to Portland. I know that Oregonians all over the state are being injured and killed as a result of gun violence. And I know that families all over the state are getting increasingly worried about the experience that their kids are having in public schools. So I think we are losing the confidence in public institutions, and that doesn't bode well for our future. For me, a lot of this stems from the disconnect between the good intentions we have in Oregon and our lack of follow through, the execution that we need to have in order to deliver for Oregonians. And that's why I'm running. I think it is obviously important to pass good policies, to appropriate money, but my experience as treasurer has definitely convinced me that that's often where the hard work begins. When a bill is passed or money is appropriated, it's sweating those details. It's making sure that we are executing and holding people accountable. That's the difference between serving in the legislature and serving in executive office. I think that's why both of the former governors who have decided to be involved in this race, Governor Roberts and Governor Kitzhauer, have endorsed me. And so I'm eager to talk about any issues that you want to, anything that's on your mind, to hear your feedback, and to really ask for your vote over the next 3 weeks. So thanks for giving me a chance to connect with you all.
Thanks for being here. Anybody have any questions or comments? I have one. I'll just use a prerogative here. So I've got younger family members that live in Portland, and what you say is just resonating because after a recent conversation through a visit, they went ahead and passed, and voted for a tax measure to help the houselessness situation up there, but really feel like nothing has happened. Like there's been no plan and nothing has happened. And so I really appreciate that about your campaign. And I do appreciate, even though I'm a criminal defense attorney, that you also understand that we need policing, which is what they are saying, because what they feel like they're doing is subsidizing lawlessness up in Portland, in those houseless camps. So, but I will say this. To us in Southern Oregon, we really care about climate change, Treasurer Read. And I guess there's real concerns about whether or not you have a commitment to that. And I get it that we have a lot of issues that need addressing in this day and age. But we also, I think many of us know that if we don't do some major economic and just paradigm shifts of all different levels in the next 15 years, that we're just going to have more and more problems to deal with. So I guess I'm wondering, I think you've gotten some heat recently for having some of our state funds invested in fossil fuel investments, and I guess I'm wondering what you think about climate change issues.
I think it's a huge priority, and I'm really proud of what we've done at Treasury. We have dramatically decreased our exposure to the investments that have fossil fuel risks. We've more than doubled our investments in clean energy and renewable technology, and we're continuing to add to the capacity we have at Treasury in adding that evaluation as we make investment decisions. It is worth remembering that we have a duty to deliver returns to our beneficiaries, and it's a $140 billion portfolio. So it takes time to add to this in a responsible way. But I think we're on the clear trajectory within Treasury. Beyond that, I think you can look at my record around these issues in a variety of ways. Look at what we've been able to do with the Elliott Forest, no longer the Elliott State Forest, but the Elliott State Research Forest, in a way that we've met our obligations to the Common School Fund and created what's going to be the largest research forest in North America to take on these questions of climate change. And on top of that, there's a pretty comprehensive climate agenda on our website, which should invite people to take a look at. There's nothing more important, but I have, a variety of different roles and responsibilities. And as you obviously recognize, these play out in different ways in different circumstances. But I think it is one of the very most important issues. It's all of us that have the responsibility to create a trajectory and move along that trajectory as a state. We can be a leader in solving our own issues and being an example to the rest of the world.
Well, thank you. We have a couple in the chat, and then I'm going to get to those that have their hands raised. Let's go ahead with if Delcy asks, as a cisgender white man, how will you create a climate of inclusivity in your administration? And then there's one more after that. But go ahead with that one.
Well, with intention, I'm really proud of the fact that the Treasury workforce, for example, looks a lot different than when I joined. That's the result of being intentional from the start and saying, as we hire people, we're not going to go to the same sources. We're not going to be satisfied with doing things as they have been done. And so we've been able to connect with talent in a lot of different places. And it's an intention that goes beyond just hiring. We do a continual ongoing training with Basic Rights Oregon and other organizations to make sure that we're aware of how we create the culture of inclusivity. It's the right thing to do, full stop. In addition to that, it allows us to do our work better, to serve Oregonians better, and to avoid some of all of the lawsuits, whistleblower complaints, payouts that you see in other parts of the government, like the legislature.
Thank you for that. One more in the chat before we get to a couple hand raises, and then Jessica will get to yours. But what's at least one major difference between your campaign and Tina Kotek's?
Well, I think the biggest difference is the fact that, I've served in the legislature. That's a similarity. But the difference is that I've served in executive office. That's different in terms of actually delivering results, not just passing legislation or appropriating money. I think it's really damaging when we promise things to Oregonians and then don't live up to it. When we say we're gonna help with rental relief, but it gets stuck at the Housing and Community Service Agency. When we say we're really proud of the paid family leave program we have, except that it hasn't helped anyone because it continues to be delayed. When we say we're acting on climate, well, the legislature didn't act on climate because there were walkouts. The climate action that we've taken is a result of executive orders by the governor because the legislature couldn't get it done. Those are all really important. The other thing I think is important for Democrats to remember is that this is not a walk in the park in the general election. The electoral conditions do not bode well for us. So it's going to be really important to have someone as our nominee who is prepared to carry our message across the state. And it is worth noting, again, that both of the former governors who have chosen to be involved in this race have endorsed me. I think that's because they recognize the skill, the temperament, the approach I will take. And by the way, there's only one candidate in this race, Democrat, Republican, or unaffiliated, who has ever run statewide and won statewide. That's me. Governor Roberts talked about that really specifically last week and saying that she was much more effective as a governor as a result of having served as Secretary of State beforehand. So I think the statewide experience is not something to be overlooked.
Thank you so much for your direct answers. And we'll go to Alan for a minute and then Jeannie. Go ahead, Alan.
Alan, you're muted. There you go.
I know. So thank you for being with us, Treasurer Read. And I just wanted to ask a couple of things about the walkouts of the Republicans in the legislature and climate change and legislation. Is there any way that can be resolved? that could you provide leadership to get the rules changed so that, that a simple majority of the legislature can pass meaningful legislation? Right now, the Republicans can walk out on anything they disagree with and stop legislation from being passed.
Thanks for the question, Alan. Yeah, you and I both know, unfortunately, a change to the requirements around quorum would require a constitutional change. But I don't think that's the only way we can change that. Change the quorum. I think we can change the culture and the atmosphere about how things work there. I think anytime that a minority party walks out of the legislature, the majority party needs to look in the mirror, at least to some extent, and say, what have we done to create a process or an atmosphere where the minority party feels like it's better for them and the people they represent to withdraw completely. This is not me saying that they should be able to hold anything hostage or exercise a veto by their absence. But I do think it's really important to create an atmosphere of trust. We're not going to agree on everything, but I was there in the legislature when we were able to do that, creating the relationships that I could go to my Republican colleagues and say, look, I know you're going to vote against this, but could you help me identify the flaws in this idea or this policy? And they would do that, and they would vote.
Wasn't that before Trump came into office?
It was, but I have also done that since Trump, and the example in the Elliott State Forest is a perfect example. If you look at that, what we started with was a problem that went back to the 1990s and entrenched opposition and people who were just stuck in their positions. And what we've been able to do is create a pathway and a solution that has loggers and timber industry united with environmentalists and conservation folks all saying some version of, this isn't exactly what I would design if I got to do it myself, but this can work. And maybe even more importantly, it's an example of how we can take on other tough issues. So, excuse me, I don't think it's something where we should just say we can only get our way exactly. All of us have to get a little more comfortable with incrementalism. It doesn't mean, compromising your principles or saying we're giving up on our ultimate goals, but I think we can say, if this is what the universe is offering to us, we'll take it and try to build the muscle memory of how we move forward on things that really matter.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Okay, Jeannie next, and then we're going to go to Kathy in the chat, and then Nathan.
Okay, so I think I'm totally a climate voter, and that's my number one issue. But number two is education, and we have a severe teacher shortage right now. I work in early childhood for an agency that provides services to disabled children. And we have 2 empty classrooms because we can't hire special education teachers and staff to work with these kiddos. And so what we have to provide the service, we ended up overloading the staff we do have with really high caseloads, and we're not able to see the children, have the children in for their therapies and education really enough at all, especially on top of the loss the kids experienced with not having in-person services at the height of COVID. So what's your solution for the teacher crisis, the lack of teachers and people dropping out of the profession?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the work you're doing. It is just not acceptable that we're in this situation that we don't have adequate capacity, and the people who are doing that work are overburdened. This is personal for me too. My wife and I are parents of a 7th grade daughter and a 3rd grade son in the public schools in Beaverton, and we have a lot of advantages that other people don't have. But it's hard for everybody, and I think I can say with confidence that as the chief investment officer for the state, that these are the investments we should be making for our long run future. So I think it's a matter of making sure that people are fairly compensated, that their caseloads are adequate, and that we're creating a pathway in which people will look to this noble work as something that's viable for a career path, so that they are, that they can feel like they can commit themselves to it. So it's not only wages and benefits, it's not only caseload, it's that pipeline. Maybe we help with removing barriers and making it easier to get the appropriate licensures. Maybe it's help with student loans that actually works. Maybe it's down payment assistance for homes. I think a comprehensive view of this, informed by the reality that we have an obligation to be investing in the human potential of young Oregonians. So that's something that matters to me a great deal, and I again really appreciate the work that you're doing.
All right, couple more. We have Kathy Conway and Alan Journet of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now. You may know them. Asking, what will you do to get Oregon to net zero greenhouse gases by 2050, as the IPCC indicates is necessary?
I think there are a number of things. One is an embrace of offshore wind to make sure that we are taking advantage of the opportunities we have there. Another is an embrace and acceleration in the deployment of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And as a part of that, I think it matters to make sure that people who aren't in a position to acquire a new electric vehicle have access. So helping to develop the used market of electric vehicles. I think we got to be a lot more aggressive on energy efficiency in houses and buildings, and we've got to look for ways that we bring the rest of the state along here, whether it's reducing our vulnerability to wildfires or helping to integrate ranchers and farm owners as the carbon content of their soil really can be a place where we can connect. All of these things, I think, allow us to say not only, and I say this with a little bit of a wink and a smile, it's not just that we can, make our future slightly less terrible if we do all these unpleasant things, but we can make life better too if we embrace these opportunities, because they are opportunities to make ourselves and our economy more resilient and have a higher quality of life. So it's top of mind and top the priority list for me.
All right, we'll just do one more, and I hope you'll forgive me, Scott. I hope that answer to the last question might have helped you some, but we'll go with Nathan Soltz, who you may know from his service with Lou Fredericks. He's a PCP. We see him occasionally. Go ahead, Nathan.
Thanks, Tanya. I'm wanting to ask about the state bank. There have been bills and resolutions introduced for a few sessions now about it, supported by Democrats and Republicans too, and I'm wondering what your position is on that, and if you do support it, what could you do to help make it a reality, since it's been slowly moving, but not anything real. And as treasurer, I think you've been in a good position to be able to see what might be the benefits and detriments to it, but I think that there's a whole lot of people who are supporting it, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
Sure. Well, I think, and you can correct me, Nathan, but I think I understand at least some of what is attractive to people who want to explore this, and it's the idea of trying to use Oregon money to benefit the Oregon economy, and I'm certainly in favor of that. I am less concerned about what it's called, whether it's a state bank or something else, and more concerned about how we can maximize that effect. So you may know this, but there are some of the elements that people typically point to in a state bank concept that already occur in Oregon. They just don't happen to be in the same place or called a state bank. So the local government investment pool, for example, we manage at Treasury, where local governments and state agencies pool their resources, and we're able to invest those and get better returns with the same level of liquidity and security. There are loan guarantee and credit enhancement funds that exist at the business development department as well. So if we're talking about how we can do more of that sort of thing, I'm all for it. As I say, I'm less concerned about what label is put on it, because there are some downsides, as you point out, in terms of the capitalization, the cost of doing something that way. And I like the idea of continuing to use the expertise that exists in local banks and credit unions around Oregon, who know their communities, who know the businesses, who know where the right risks are to take. And I think those partnerships can go a long way in realizing some of those benefits. So count me as somebody who is all in for the goals and is flexible on the route to get there.
All right. Thank you again for answering those tough questions tonight and being with us and being part of this race.
Please keep in touch. We're easy to find. The website has a lot of good information, and I'd look forward to hearing from all of you, and hope I can earn your votes and those of people in your networks.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye-bye.